1971 Plymouth Cuda 440. This is an Xbox 360.
Look, I'm a lazy man, but not lazy enough to do Barracuda by heart.
The 1971 Plymouth Cuda 440 is the peak of old muscle car technology. This is the end of the line, kid. By 1972, emissions began. And in 1973, the oil crisis began. 440s were no longer available, and big blocks in general were undesirable. 1980s brought fuel injection and overhead cams. 1990s saw widespread use of turbochargers and later on coil-on-plug ignition. Large displacement engines wouldn't return until the new century, thanks to our Lord and Savior. 1971 marks the final year of the muscle car era, but back then, no one knew it. No one knew that that was the end. There would never be a year again quite like 1971. 1971, when power was solved with displacement and nothing else. In the previous decade, the 1960s, as that was progressing, engines started to grow like goldfish moving to larger and larger aquariums. The Barracuda line isn't the most pleasing car from that era. I mean, my vote goes to the Mustang GT390 as like the best muscle car. But this quad headlight Cuda was the last machine Americans could buy before it was all over. This car was like the last concert you went to before March of 2020, or the last party before a breakup, or the last warm weekend before Pennsylvania sinks into the long dark. It doesn't mean it was the best of anything, it just meant that it was the last. In video game terms, the Cuda is the Xbox 360, the greatest console ever made. Fight me. I mean, back then, you owned your games. There was no cloud. You didn't need an internet connection. I mean, back then, building a PC was cost prohibitive, and the Xbox 360 had graphics and a frame rate as good as anything you could reasonably build. And by reasonably build, I mean for a reasonable budget. And the Xbox 360 was delightfully unreliable. The red ring of death, that carpet-burning power brick. But it was backwards compatible. People understood it. And the online voice chat was a hellscape of slurs that would make even Nick Mullen blush. It was a ruthless era of video gaming that's never coming back. And now, in 2020, a tablet is all you need to join your friends for Among Us. Big graphics don't sell games anymore. And displacement alone doesn't make a car a hit anymore. Look, here's the thing about the Cuda. Apostrophe C-U-D-A. It's not the same as a Barracuda. It's Barracuda adjacent. It's more of a performance car than a typical Barracuda, but performance more like excess. A muscle car of the type consumers would come to identify as the idea of the American gearhead, you know, and his thick, hairy, blood-crusted knuckles. I'm a marketing executive in 2019. This is what gearheads like, so let's make all modern cars look like this thing from 1971. The first official year for the Cuda was 1969, and engine options include 340, 383, which is what this car originally had. Yeah, this isn't a legit 440. This is a tribute. Underneath, this was a blue car with a 383. And the badging on the side says, 446, like it's supposed to have a six-pack in there. Underneath, nope, it's a 4-barrel carburetor. So more on how this thing was put together in a minute. Anyways, there was the 383 and then the 440. And then way off in the distance, there was the Hemi, which it was its own gigolo thing. We're not going to talk about the Hemi right now. In essence, the Cuda fathered the Hellcats. Like, you don't get the Hellcat, you don't get the Challenger without this thing. This thing fertilized the egg of big engines and high compression. And when I say high compression, the 440 that's in this is knocking with 93 octane in it. The compression is nuts. 93 at Knox?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, race gas is the best thing for this, but I usually put boost. I just forgot to do it today.
Because Adam, the owner, wanted this 440 to make 500 horsepower. Well, how do you do that with ancient technology? You gotta squeeze it all in there. And you can hear it when I'm driving it. I hear it. I get on this engine and you hear it donk, 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 donk. Holy crap. You have to drive this car with 100 octane race gas for it to run right. This thing doesn't even want to idle. You got to put it into neutral or put your foot on the gas and the foot on the brake because the cam is so insane, it can't idle correctly. That's another thing about these old engines and why I don't like dinosaur blocks. They don't matter. They're stupid. The only way for them to make power is to just go on full life support. This car is a horrific nightmare to drive. And one thing is, it does live up to its hype. It's a scary frickin' machine. I can't tell how wide this car is. I can't see out the back, so in that case, I guess it's just like a modern car. Can't see out the back, can't really see out the sides, hood's frickin' long, car's frickin' wide, and it doesn't handle. Oh, the handling. Oh, it's bad. Because this thing has 70s era power steering, like one finger boosted power steering in a car that's supposed to be performance. I have no road feel at all. I have 500 horsepower. I have drum brakes. I don't have a booster. Holy crap, this is nuts. And you're supposed to not worry about it. 1971 Plymouth Cuda, the official car of your girlfriend telling you not to worry about her work husband. You know exactly how bad this is gonna get. And yet, Cudas are romanticized to an unhealthy degree in that aggressive early 70s way. These are terrible to drive. And Adam didn't make it safer. He just made it faster. He bored the 440 engine 0.03 over. The cam is a Mopar purple shaft with 590 lift and 312 duration. It's got solid push rods and lifters with adjustable rockers, Mopar Performance dual plane intake, Edelbrock 800 CFM Thunder Carb, TCI Street Fighter torque converter, transmission as a Fairchild shift kit, the engine outputs through TTI headers. Honestly, those are pretty nice. Plus new exhaust, new bushings, new upper control arms, new steering box, and thankfully an alignment. It's moody and aggressive, and this car doesn't care about you. It's a 50s greaser with knuckle dusters, early onset CTE, a practiced 1,000-yard stare, and a switchblade in his pocket that he uses as a comb. He's turned stylish apathy into a cottage industry. And to be fair, this Cuda is about as good example as we can find. And look at this interior. Looks like the photos a social worker takes of a client's living room while the resident says, "What's the big deal?" To our knowledge, 1971 was the only year the Cuda had 4 headlights, and total Barracuda production numbers for 1971 across all variants, including the Cuda and Cuda convertible, was 16,492 units. For hardtop models, it came out to 5,383. Now this is compared to the 151,000 Mustangs made and 114,000 Camaros produced in 1971, so it's easy to see how these demand higher prices, though nothing compared to what muscle cars were worth in the bubble of the early 2000s. These things have fallen hard, and even harder now during the 2020 times. I mean, it's been in Adam's family for a long time, but this isn't the original paint. It was originally glacier blue, and you can kind of see some of it. Now, glacier blue was only offered in 1971, but Adam's dad repainted it with the Tour red color. It's got the 440 billboard stripe on it, along with body work and stuff. He never ever got to the interior or updated anything but the engine. So in Adam's words, it goes like a rocket ship and handles like a shopping cart and stops like a covered wagon. According to Haggerty, if this had been a prime version of a 71 Cuda with a 383 engine, you're looking at about $80,000. Now those numbers are pre-pandemic. In fair condition, you're talking maybe $40,000. But this current condition, who knows, man? Could you get $40,000 for this? Well, maybe. But you'd have to court a tech bro or a wealthy Twitch streamer who knows nothing about cars but wants to look masculine. You'd have to court somebody whose favorite movie is Triple X. While we were filming this, we got thumbs up everywhere. People who aren't into cars know that this has worth because this shape, especially the side profile, has been just drilled into our heads all throughout the 2010s, I'm calling it, like the 2010s. When all muscle cars and like American cars started to get this fastback shape, but they can never quite get it. You can never really go back to this because this is so unsafe. It's the death knell for institutional existence. Muscle cars are not, by rights, an eternal option. They exist in a hypothetical universe where muscle cars, by their traditional understanding, gradually disappear behind the shadow of their own legend, like this one did, or is doing. The Cuda is an argument for, here's a vocabulary word, essentialism of the muscle car. A Cuda can't change its nature. You can't make this car good. You can't make it safe to drive. You can't make it handle. It has specific traits that must be adhered to in order for the car to fulfill its muscular identity. But the reality is that muscle cars have always had unfixed identities. The ones that survive change with the times, as they need to. In a sense, a muscle car can never betray its own character. You can't unlemon a muscle car. The cost of making a 60s or 70s car act like a modern car, the price just goes straight up. A muscle car can never betray its own character because the character doesn't obey any single characteristics that can't be altered with the times. A modern muscle car is open to change, and in the transaction is allowed to continue to exist, continue to be produced. Whereas the essential muscle car embodies the period in which it lived, and it can't move past it. You can't mod an Xbox 360 to be competitive in the modern times. Those old, in terms of like PC culture, you can't take those single AMD processors and do anything else with them. Lazy Game Reviews tried. He reached the absolute pinnacle of 2000s tech, but that's it. It stops. Muscle cars remain stuck where they are by necessity. That's why every modern take on a classic muscle car just comes across as disingenuous, because the rules of the game have changed. The rules of safety have changed. The rules of emissions have changed. And also the things consumers are willing to tolerate have changed. But man, I will never forget this day.
Does this have drum brakes all the way around?
Oh yeah.
And I didn't see a booster under that hood.
No, it's all manual. In fact, that's the next thing I'm putting on is disc brakes on the front.
Yeah.
That's next year. Oh, deer. Oh shit, yep,
More.
stop. Wait, park.
So it won't start
Nope.
and drive?
Throttle. Well, hold it on the throttle. All right, here, let off. Oh,
Sorry.
all right. Throttle a little bit. There you go. Okay. Jeez, this has been exciting. All right, there you go. Now drive.
I will never forget the fear of just staring at this thing and trying to control it, trying to withstand its presence.
You're touching.
Whoa. Whoa. Okay. There's tons of power and I can't control it.
Yeah, it was way worse before.
Plymouth Cuda 440. If Jocko Willink's dick had a steering wheel.
No Barracuda here, just the one. They called it a Cuda, lovely and dangerous. A femme fatale on wheels, its muscle car thick. In the run, it began 7-1 and lasted till about 7-4.